Hi, folks. So I was wrong about Hamas. Doesn't happen often that I'm wrong. No, it happens all the time. And this is one of them. And I thought Hamas was going to sort of finesse their way into saying no while trying to put the blame on Israel. But I was completely wrong. Hamas has decided to just head on take the blame for the failure of this deal. And their answer is an absolute mockery of the mediators and of the entire process. And let's start with what they said. The new details on the counteroffer are kind of mind-blowing. At first, the leaks were that it was a yes, but kind of thing, but they've changed the entire deal, knowing there's no way Israel can accept this, and spitting in the face of the mediators. Let's take a look. They said on the first day, Israel has to withdraw from all populated areas of Gaza. On the third day, withdraw from the major routes and from the area dividing the north and the south, Saladin route, Al Rashid Street. They said they'll only release 32 live hostages instead of 33. The entire withdrawal from populated areas has to be completed in a week. Otherwise, the release of hostages will stop right then and there. Israel released prisoners in the order of seniority. Those who arrested first released first. The first stage will end with Israel declaring a permanent end to hostilities, even if they don't feel like the entire first stage has been fulfilled, like they don't get all the hostages. The US, Russia, China, and Turkey will provide guarantees alongside Qatar and Egypt. So there's a whole new countries entered here that Israel doesn't want. On the 22nd day, every Hamas member rearrested from the Shalit deal will be released. The conditions of detainees remaining in Israel will be improved to pre-October 7th levels. No Israeli veto on which terrorists are released from prison, so Israel gets no say. Hamas decides which prisoners, and those would be the heaviest, worst prisoners. Of course, 50 Hamas members a day transferred to receive medical attention in Egypt. Israel will provide Gaza with all the electricity it needs in perpetuity for free. The rebuilding of Gaza will occur in phase one instead of three. Now, the way the deal was constructed is phase three is when Gaza is reconstructed, and that happens after they've fulfilled everything else. But now they're saying that will start on the first phase and cannot be canceled. So no matter what happens, it will be rebuilt. That was sort of um, the carrot that Israel's dangling in front of Hamas to make sure they get all the hostages released, and this upends the entire logic of the deal. The war will continue, even if agreements over phase two are not reached. And that's what Hamas is worried about, that Israel will get the hostages back in phase one and then continue. All terrorists will return to their homes, none will be deported elsewhere. And Israel wants to make sure that the worst terrorists don't go to the West Bank, so that doesn't become the next Gaza. And Israeli sources have called this a non-starter and have said this is not something they can work with. But I would add more. I would say this is an insult to Israel. It's an insult to the mediators, and it's something Israel should not even begin to engage with. Now, why does this happen? I think one of the clues is that Qatar does not want to pressure Hamas at all. And even though they're saying to America that they are, and even publicly, they're not willing to put the blame on Hamas. There was a press conference today with Blinken and Qatari Prime Minister Al Thani, and I watched it closely. Al Thani said, our interest as a country is to see peace and stability in the region. We're not going to appear to be endorsing one party over the other. Our policy is apparent. It's supporting the Palestinian people and their rights. But at the end of the day, we're a state, not a political party. He also blamed the Israeli operation in Rafah for talks having issues. So he was standing right there, asked whether he's going to pressure Hamas, and that was Al Thani's answer. I think it's pretty clear he's not pressuring Hamas. If he was, he would show that he means it publicly and that there would be consequences for Hamas. He's not showing it. I think that they're just telling the Americans what they want to hear, putting no pressure on Hamas, and then Hamas is acting this way. The Americans, on their part, they're putting the blame on Hamas, which is good, but they're also not taking what they should be taking, which is a take it or leave it attitude to this, which is allowing Hamas to do whatever they want. Here's what Blinken said in the press conference. He said, quote, Hamas has proposed numerous changes to the proposal that was on the table. Some of the changes are workable, some are not. I believe the differences are bridgeable. That doesn't mean they will be bridged because ultimately Hamas has to decide. So he's placing the onus on Hamas, but he's doing it in a very weak manner. like I said, at this point has to be take it or leave it. They will leave it, but at least this debacle will not continue. And maybe when negotiations start, they can start from some place that is a semblance of normalcy. Meanwhile, things have gotten worse for Israel in the north. Israel escalated, understandably, because Hezbollah escalated first, killed a Hezbollah parallel of a division commander, and hit the most northernmost spot in Lebanon to show that they'll willing to hit anywhere in the country. In response, Hezbollah launched 215 rockets over 24 hours, the most in any period. Again, the north is ablaze. Civilians can't return to their homes, and Israel looks powerless. So right now, Israel is facing escalation in the north. There's no possibility of a ceasefire in Gaza, no real plan. What Hamas is doing and Hezbollah are doing, they're daring Israel to use their military, get caught up in what they believe will be a further quagmire of public relations for Israel that will force Israel to come back eventually to the negotiating table, willing to absolutely surrender and debase itself. And it's really up to Israel what it does now. Does it come up with a coherent strategic plan to make Hezbollah and Hamas pay a serious cost, or does it continue to act with absolutely no plan, falling into every trap that these terrorists are setting for Israel? I hope they will have a plan. I am very doubtful. But let's try to be optimistic. I wasn't expecting that great rescue, and we had it. Um, Hopefully, I'm wrong, and Israel will come up with a plan. We will see. I had a lot of questions from you guys. I only picked a few. I apologize to those I haven't. Here they are. FRDZ4KB said, do you believe there's something the US or the West could offer Netanyahu to move him to make a deal with Hamas, like shielding him from prosecution, money, etc.? Or are Israelis, Palestinians, and the whole region hostage to Ben-Gvir and Smotrich? So I think that what Netanyahu really loves more than money or anything else is power. And he wants to stay in power, and there's really no way to induce him off that. I will say this though. The premise of your question is that Netanyahu is the main obstacle to a ceasefire. And while I wouldn't say he's not an obstacle, he is. Hamas have proven to be the main obstacle to a ceasefire. And the focus needs to be on them right now, not on Netanyahu. JDB316 asked, what do you think has made Khanism an ideology that's more mainstream in Israel? Well, that's two major causes for that. One is the failure of the Oslo process and the failure of the disengagement that has left people bitter about attempts to resolve the conflict, and understandably so. The other is that in the past, Israelis used to come into contact with Palestinians quite often. They would work in Israel, Israelis would shop in the West Bank, etc., etc. Now they don't. They're separated for security reasons, and that means that it's much easier to demonize them. Because when I was a kid, you would meet Palestinians, you'd see that they can be lovely, very nice people. Friendships would emerge, etc. Now there's a separation that leads to demonization. People's War asks, I wonder if the human assets that fed the idea of intelligence are doing it out of conviction or for money, because it's very dangerous to snitch on Hamas. Yes. So why did they do it? There are, it's kind of like the movies. There's a mix of ideologies. There's people who, mix of motives. There's people who are ideologically motivated who hate Hamas. That happens. There's people Israel has leverage on, blackmailing in various ways. That happens. And there's people that Israel is paying. Sometimes money, also promises to smuggle them out of Gaza, give them a better life, etc., etc. The human intelligence source that Israel had appeared to have been in a very bad spot after October 7th. From what I'm hearing, Israel's rebuilt them with to a satisfactory extent, but I guess we'll see. That the results of this operation certainly indicate that that's the situation. People's War also asks, does Israeli intelligence think Sinwar has hostages with him? Yes. The last number I heard was 20. That seems very high considering how many hostages may be left alive, but he definitely has hostages with him, and that's complicating the ability to assassinate him. It's one of the main reasons he's alive. Finally, Pratchett Guyman asks, Hamas is claiming the IDF killed 3 hostages while rescuing the other 4. In your opinion, are they lying, offloading some hostage deaths, executing hostages in response, or did the IDF actually kill them? I'm pretty sure that no hostages died in this operation. I'll tell you why. I've seen footage, everyone's seen footage, of the rescue of the 3 males. I've also seen some footage that most people haven't seen from the rescue of Noah Argamani. There are no other hostages there. The hostages, when they were released, didn't mention hostages. I've talked to people who were involved in this operation one way or another. They haven't heard anything about that. I think it's a Hamas attempt to sully a very successful operation. This is a PR war. And in many ways, that was a great Israeli success, and Hamas didn't like it. And they tried to exaggerate the number of civilian casualties and invent hostages that were killed. I don't believe it. It's not impossible, but I seriously don't believe it. Okay, that's all for the video today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon at Shail Media. Consider listening to my history podcast, History of the Land of Israel podcast, and I will see you here next time something exciting happens.